Jimmy Bunzo Jala Sorande, Gonja to Bambo or Shinjilo, Gonja to Bambo or Shinjilo, Gonja to Bambo or Shinjilo.
The supreme, profound, and sublime Dharma is difficult to encounter even in a billion eons, but now I have been fortunate enough to have seen it, heard it, received it, and kept it. I vow to attain the true meaning of the Tathagata. In order to liberate all sentient beings, let us generate the supreme bodhicitta. So today, let us begin the studying of Sutra on praising the noble qualities of the Sangha.
都一直讲这个战胜功德经，可能讲个3、4节课吧。首先我这个念一遍，我这个也是翻成藏语。
I will read it first because this is my translation into the Tibetan language.
我这个变小。
So I like the printing this time, but I think the side is a little bit too narrow. But it's pretty good.
这也是这边印的是吧？
Is it printed here?
先我念一遍，
I will read it first. It's not for transmission,
也算是一个
but
价
you
值。
can consider it as a blessing.
Rabdu Shong Payon Lapto Patsis Japindo Jipshava Jigso, Ramu Long Lip Deeperton, Deeperton, Gendon Comcho Jean Laptot, Tsambab Gapshan Lasso, Petsanya Nyamu Gendon Tut, Sai Nyamu, Sai Lamo Tamma So. Gendon Comcho Nam Laptot, Nai Tamjig Rapshon, Gendon Comcho Tata Ne, Gendon Perer Tambatar, Lamit Shanchim Jeva Top, Maro Nigmin Jiktender, Garan Dide Samra Ne, Gajim Jeva Gendotan, Gajim Jeva Mongir, Ganz Zonge Yabgid Sogum, Tumbi Gendan Ginchan Met, Gajib Janvi Yondan Chan, Lala Wember Jever Ne, Taken Jungach Jojan the Chavi Sutam Yang Jong, Gajik Zabji Sherblo, Gajik Tanzam Santum Gum, Tamchil Gendan Dindi, Chivya Yamsur Joravian. Gumcho Chanper Gendanji, Samson Namla Gestafton, Tamim Jeva Yang Doctor, Tanla Raptor Shong, Tanla, Rapshon Gunlen Pak, Dama Yiki Chinkur Gun, Derper Sono Horta Met, the Chinchana Jarni, Gendan Lamchut. Sagyotman. Ganjim near the Tienchi, Gupuchu, Garandope, Gendan de la Tennis, Gesta Yang of Chambrasha. Sono Quarti Jamcho, the Gavi Sound Gamta, Pam Jeva Home Top Nerte, Chamber Church Jumbabjan. Jamdavanins and Mesam Gi. Jamdavanins and Mesam Gim, Toman Merger. Jamnim the Gendan Chupa Ganzala Tamim Jeva Yang Top, Home Yondan Kivgambi, if Sichin Stumbi Jinjir Nam, Tarvi Yobam Mavian the Tamar Mukum Tomorka. Gajik non Cerncherian, Nansan Yondan Hormeder Dan, Takim Chone Pakchin Nam Shibechtan Pok Maniso, Gajik Schutzer Sholum Zan, Gajik Dopa Marpan Va. Sutra Sosu Kiorna, Nangatanyan Pabarani, Armim Jeva, Rigjertar, Manda Marman Jiperka, Jarov Tajan Devjan de Citron Damnan Everka, Dina Kunla Nan Giv Gur Gendam Kumchuk Monmansha, Dungum Sole Gardope, Stag the Janzan Sonum Sha.
Now, let's get to the actual teaching of Sutra on praising the noble qualities of the Sangha. In fact, this sutra is included in the Tripitaka of mainland, that is, Dazheng Buddhist scriptures. But I did not find it in the Tibetan canon of the Tripitaka. And since I had a little time during winter, therefore I translated into Tibetan language. There's another sutra, Sutra on Praising the Noble Qualities of the Ordained Monastic, and that one is a little bit longer than this one. So both of the texts, in fact, I've read them back in the 80s. After reading such, I generated lots of faith. Therefore, in some of my classes, I would quote from these two sutras. And I can memorize quite a bit, and I would quote from them, but I never really got an opportunity to teach on these two. Well, in terms of giving the teaching, since I've never really received the teaching from any other masters at all, therefore I don't really have an oral transmission. I don't have a lineage in this lineage oral transmission, but I think we can study it in a way that we are learning together. So in the next few days, I will give the teaching on this sutra, and in the future, maybe I'll give you the teaching on the sutra on praising the noble qualities of the monastics later. And in terms of this one, the sutra on praising the noble qualities of the Sangha talks about how in different sutras, mainly the sutras that's included in the Agama Sutra, where they talk about the different noble qualities and praising different noble qualities of the Sangha, praising the qualities of the monastics. So I think these are really wonderful. I think as the lay practitioners, this is quite important for you to learn, because we have a human body that is difficult to gain, and we meet lots of monastics, and of course there are monastics who are really pure inside and out, and whenever you see them you would feel happy and generate faith very easily, and these kinds of people can be called the field of merit. But sometimes maybe for some monastics, maybe they have their different secret intention, or maybe they have a certain manifestation. But we should not generate wrong view or slandering, because that would generate lots of negative karma for you. Therefore, I think it is quite important for the lay practitioners to understand and to learn this sutra. For monastics, on the other hand, I think because you're monastics, but if you have the habitual pattern of slandering others and likes to talk about other people's shortcomings and so on, then maybe without really knowing it, you might create great negative karma for yourself, and this is really unnecessary. So we should understand, we really should understand what to do so that it would be helpful to our own practice. When I read this sutra, I had a great connection to it. Therefore, when I was translating it into Tibetan language, and because I have to contemplate and think quite a bit, I generated even deeper feeling to it. And after I made up my mind, whenever and whichever monastery I am, whenever, whomsoever, as long as they're monastic, I won't make any kind of slandering. I would show my respect to them, even if any of the little wrong view I generated in my mind, I would make a confession right away. And this time it will take only 3 or 4 classes to finish this teaching. I really hope that you could refine or understand the purpose of this teaching. such as yesterday when we studied the Filial Piety Sutra taught by the Buddha, where it mainly talks about how it is difficult to repay the parents' kindness, and that was the purpose of studying it. By the way, yesterday I made a mistake of saying shameless. In fact, what I meant was knowing that you should be shameful, or knowing your limit. If you were to cross your limit, you should be shameful. But I think it's probably a slip of tongue, and I made a mistake there. Maybe because I'm already aged, just as in the United States presidential race, where Biden said that there were about 120 million Americans already died from coronavirus. It was a mistake that he made. And people from the media said that he probably got Alzheimer's. Anyhow, that was a mistake. In the 7 treasures of the noble ones, one of the treasure was that having limits and having a sense of shame. But I made a mistake saying shameless and just making correction over here. As of today, in fact, when we talk about the Sangha, when we talk about monastic and how we should pay respect and so on, this is the purpose of learning it. Next, let's talk about praising the Sangha. When we talk about Sangha, in the Sutra of Mental Contemplation, it says that there are 3 groups of Sangha. The Bodhisattva Sangha, such as the Manjushri and Avalokiteshvara, those are the Bodhisattva Sangha, and Shravaka Sangha include such as an Ananda, Kashyapa, Moggallana, and then there's another group that is the mundane beings Sangha, the ones who have the right view and leading the sentient beings on the path of liberation. So those are the 3 groups. Sangha, what it means by Sangha? Sangha, in fact, it means the group of monastics. But over here, from the broad view, you can say that it includes the Shravaka monastics and include the mundane beings, or include the ones who are not monastics, such as lay practitioners, as long as the ones who have the right view. And from the specific point of view, or rather narrow view, it means they are the monastics only. Those are the monastic Sangha. And over here in this sutra, we're talking about it from the monastic, the ordained ones. And we're not talking about the broad Sangha. Over here, though this text is called the Sutra, but this is more of a collective teaching. Probably great masters would have edited and made such quoted sutra and edited it together. So in some ways it could be said as a shastra. The translator is not very obvious. We can't really tell who the translator is. I've read through many different editions of Tripitaka, and the translator is not so obvious, neither is the time of translation. So let's look at the stanza. Over here it says that from the collection of Agama Sutra, the Agama Sutra include Agama, Dirgha Gama, Ikotara Gama, and so on. Then in the collection from Agama Sutra, it is a collection of the praises given to the Sangha on their noble qualities. And over here, it talks about how they are being the great field of merit. That is our Sangha, the jewel of Sangha. In the three jewels, there's a jewel of Buddha, Dharma, and Sangha. So the main point over here is to praise the ones that's the Sangha. The Brahman, Indra, and Ishvara, and all of the great kings and so on, they would use the celestial sound or the pure sound to praise the Sangha. In the Sutra, it often talked about how the Indra would come to the human realm and prostrate and praise the Buddha, especially to the Sangha. In the Sutra, where it says that, in fact, all the dust that has been stepped by the monastic, the Indra and Brahman would, and Brahma would then prostrate and put and venerate with their head, with their crown. Other beings, such as non-human beings and rakshas and so on, they would also do the same. So the monastics, that is the monastic Sangha, will be praised by not only the worldly beings, but the celestial beings and the celestial monarch, because of their noble qualities. And because of the praises from the Indra, that is why they can be reborn as the Indra or as the universal monarch and so on. And then the second one is that the stability of the ground, that are the protectors of the ground, they would praise all the Sangha members, the jewel of Sangha. Monastic in this dark age, may there always be the group of Sangha and great masters. I think some of the wording is a little bit difficult to understand, but I think we can translate or we can explain in such a way. In Jambuvipa, we have the solid ground. The stability of ground is because of the protector of the ground and protectors and so on. All of these protectors, they would also praise the jewel of Sangha. In the 10 chakras of Kshitigarbha Sutra, it also talks about how the spirits and maras in this world, they would also revere the monastic Sangha, even if it's just a small piece of the robe they wear. They would revere that small piece of clothing with their crown. So even it is a small piece of their robe, of the monastic robe, if you were to wear it on you, then you can protect yourself. You can protect yourself from the external non-human beings and the maras. So that is why the protectors of the earth would also praise and revere. And what's the reason then? The Buddha said in the Dark Age, in fact, if the monastics would abide in this world, then the Dharma would be long-lasting, because without the monastic Sangha, then there won't be a long-lasting preservance of the Dharma. In Tibet, I think as well as in mainland, especially back in the 50s or 60s, for a period of time there was no monastic. I think that also means for about 20 years there was merely any Dharma. But after 20 years, around the 80s, slowly there was the recovery recovery of the monastic Sangha. Sometimes I think that it was really lucky. Only about 20 years, only about a few decades, the monastic Sangha was not existent. But if it were just like India back in history, where throughout the 13th century all the way to 18th century, the Buddha Dharma was merely existent for 500-600 years. There was no name of the monastics, including the 4 holy sites in India were all underground, and that was quite a pity. So if there was no Sangha in this world, then it is hard for the Dharma to prosper. So if the monastic could abide in this world, then the jewel of Buddha and jewel of Dharma could also abide in this world. In fact, I think the abiding of the Buddha Dharma, it really is very closely correlated with the Sangha, the monastics. That is why it is quite important to cultivate the talents in the Sangha. When we look at the history, the majority of people who propagate the Dharma extensively, they were all monastics. So that is why the existence of Buddhism is closely correlated with the Sangha group. So if we have qualities or abilities, then we can build Sangha, we can build monasteries and try to provide favorable conditions and circumstances for them. And these kind of conditions are extremely necessary. Unfortunately, around the cities nowadays, I think it is quite a pity we have less and less monasteries. Even if there is a monastery, there are less and less monastics. Even if there are monastics, there are less and less places where they would practice and listen and contemplate. I'm not saying there's none, but let's look at the numbers. In a large city, there could be millions of people, but are there monasteries? There could be some very small monasteries, but majority of them, their function is mostly on burning incense, for people to burn incense, to prostrate to the Buddha, to circumambulate, and to seek and to wish for their own wealth and safety and so on. But there are very few of those monasteries who would give teachings to the lay practitioners, and who would show the path of liberation to the lay practitioners, and it is decreasing. I think this is the condition nowadays. I'm not sure why, but compared to the history, such as in history in Qing, Ming, and Yuan Dynasty, in fact, there were lots of monasteries, but nowadays those monasteries are getting more and more empty. Lots of people don't even want to stay in monasteries. They wanted to give the monasteries away. And there's less and less abbots and monastics. Even if there are monastics, there are few lay practitioners who want to support that monastery. And even if there are, then within the lay practitioners group, because there's a lack of listening, contemplation, and practice of the genuine Dharma, the practitioners usually would get in conflicts with one another, which is not very optimistic in my opinion. Therefore, it is quite important to have the Sangha to be present, so that the Dharma would be present in our world. The next one is about the Sangha. In fact, if all the Sangha members could work in synergy, then the Dharma would prosper. And then the monastic will practice diligently to seek for the sublime fruition of the Bodhi. So many people nowadays would get ordained, and after becoming a true monastic, which then lead to the prosperity of the Sangha, and then lead to the prosperity of the Dharma. So the prosperity of the Dharma is also depending on the power of the Sangha. Of course, that is not solely based on the number of the monastic. If the Sangha is not pure, does not practice or study or benefit the sentient beings, then the benefit is very limited. But if within a pure group of the Sangha, I'm sure Buddhism is very hopeful. In this degenerated age, that has the 5 degeneration of view, of time, of beings, of afflictions, and of lifespan. It is decaying increasingly, and even in such kind of time, there are still many places that have this pure group of Sangha. And once you have such a pure Sangha group, they would practice diligently day and night, rather than spending their time without any meaning, with only intention of eating and be fulfilled by food. It's not like that at all. In fact, they don't have such kind of intention to start with. But they stayed in such pure practice place to seek for the sublime fruition of Bodhi, and try to pass that teaching on to many sentient beings, and that is called a pure Dharma center or pure Sangha group. So once we have such kind of a pure group of Sangha, doesn't matter how decaying or degenerated this world is, how much afflicted this society is. In fact, that would be very helpful. In Tibet, there are still many places that is permeated by the spiritual practice and contemplation and studying. Those are the very successful Sangha and the very successful Dharma centers. People have this very steady and really strong mind to study the Dharma without any wavering. In fact, this kind of Sangha, especially in this degenerated age, I think that could be called as the merit field, and the merit of all sentient beings, the merit of the whole world. Therefore, if we were to have such kind of Sangha in this degenerated world, degenerated age, I think we should rejoice. And once you meet this kind of monastic in this degenerated age, I think it is quite rare. Next, it talks about the different categories. In fact, there are different categories. We should analyze it. Why the monastics are so helpful, are so great. For example, nowadays people would think that what's so great about monastics? They must have been a total loser in this world. Maybe some of them got ordained because they failed in relationship, they failed in their career, or maybe they have mental issues, maybe they couldn't find a job, and that's why they went into the solitary place and get into their secluded group and shaved off their hair and wear robes, and they're just not useful at all. Maybe there are people who would have such kind of wrong view. But from a different perspective, we can say that within the group of monastics, in fact, there are many talents, many hidden talents. There are great masters who've contributed to this society greatly, and there are still the ones who are being cultivated and becoming a great monastic. Therefore, we cannot despise or scorn those ones because we don't really know what kind of Sangha or what kind of monastic we're talking about. I'm sure a very small number of monastics are, they did get ordained because they because they couldn't get successful in this worldly life. But those are a very rare number. In any kind of group, we can see the positive and negative sides. We can see the positive people and negative people. Therefore, you shouldn't really just say that the monastic group is unsuccessful just based on the example of one or two people. So we can say that, well, usually we revere the teachers and doctors, but even in those groups, they have exceptions. So we should really analyze and we should really contemplate upon it. The fourth one, where it says that there are the monastic within the Sangha who seeks for the four fruitions, such as include the stream enterer, one returner, non-returner, and arhat fruition. And there are the ones who already attained those four fruitions. And then for this great practitioners, for those ones who are seeking, who are on the path and who already received or already attained these four fruitions. In fact, these 8 groups of monastics, during the fruition period of the Dharma, there are arhats, Shotapana, or the stream enterer, and the one returner. Those kind of fruitions are often attained by the Sangha members, but now it's not that easy anymore. We, in fact, often say that among 3 people there must be something I can learn from at least one of them, or one of them could be my teacher. And within the monastic group, in fact, there are lots of people who have great merit but hidden them without revealing them at all. So there are lots of noble ones within the monastic Sangha, and they deserve reverence. And then next one, it further talks about the different types of monastics, be it begging for alms or practicing in solitude in the mountains. So there are the ones who practice mainly on the 12 dutta or the 12 austerity practices. They would go into the city beg for alms and so on, especially in, you can see them in Thailand, in Myanmar, Sri Lanka. So many of those Theravada traditions, they mainly practice that, and those are the ones who practice in retreat and meditation. In Tibetan tradition, in fact, there are lots of practitioners who would go into mountains and practice in retreat. So there are the Buddhist Institute and there are the Buddhist retreat centers. So for example, in the institute, maybe you have about hundreds of people, but in the retreat center, you probably only have about over a dozen or so. And they would take turns to take retreats. And there are people who would aspire to practice for 3 years, and some aspire to practice for a year and over a year and so on. There are practitioners who enjoy a secluded area to practice, such as in forests, in caves, under large rocks and so on. There are people who would spend their whole life practice. And there are the ones who would practice meticulously on precept. They would not even violate even the slightest precept. Some of the practitioners who practice in the mountain retreats, they don't even violate even the slightest precept that is made by the Buddha. In fact, it is quite difficult to do that. In the Sutra, it talks about the story where a bhikshu who encountered a bandit, and then the bandit then tethered that bhikshu up by reed. Because he was tethered by reed, he should be able to open it up by himself, but he didn't at all. And when people came to save him, asked him why didn't he untether it himself, he said that the Buddha has already made it in the precept. They already taught in the precept that the grass cannot be destroyed. Therefore, grass or any reed cannot be destroyed. Therefore, I did not destroy this grass. So there are practitioners who were extremely meticulous in terms of observing the precept. There are such practitioners. And then next one talks about another group, be it of extensive study on wisdom, such as the monastics within the institutes and monasteries. They have profound wisdom and extensive study. Or the ones who contemplate and practice variations of meditation, various meditation. The kind of meditation retreats, as I mentioned, they would practice different types of meditation, the four meditations, and 8 samadhis, and so on. And these groups of practitioners, in fact, are like the ones, in fact, are just like the 100 streams would merge into ocean. They have different types of practice, and they have, some of them have great wisdom, some of them have great samadhi. There are the different types of monastic who would enter into the ocean. That is the Sangha. According to Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, it says that listening with extensive listening and contemplation, as well as the ones who observe precepts and the ones who have great wisdom and practicing samadhi, all of these practitioners drawing a Sangha just as the 100 streams would all merge into ocean. So all the great, also it says that all the great people with kindness are in the group of Sangha. In fact, in the monastic Sangha, there are so many people who have the altruistic mind, who have very little afflictions, who have very little distractions. In fact, many people who have lots of merit would be staying in the Sangha group. People with the wrong view would feel that what's so great about those Shramanas, especially the ones who had been non-practitioners, non-Dharma practitioners before, they have such deep wrong view, such strong wrong view. Not only they don't generate faith to this group of people, they'd rather feel that what's so great about them, they probably even have a great repulsion towards monastics. There are situations like such, but that's really just their their negative karma that caused such kind of fruition of karma. So in such a way, whenever they would see, however, there are the ones who see the Sangha, they would feel that, wow, there are so many great masters, they're so virtuous, so wonderful. They would observe perfect precept, they would chant mantra, they would practice meditation, listen and contemplate, and make aspiration of benefiting all sentient beings. Let's look at how many people in this world, the mundane people, would make such altruistic aspirations, even including all those prestigious universities. Well, to be truthful, in fact, I think they are quite selfish. They often think about how their study could benefit them. But in Mahayana teaching, we talk about the mind of benefiting others. And I don't think lots of the professors, academics, and the scholars have such kind of altruistic intention.
Mm. 下面就是讲速生妙宝大德胜，张扬众生功德中。
Now, sublime jewel of the Sangha of great masters, continuously nurturing the seed of being's merit, and there's no one else who could bestow such a supreme fruition other than the jewel of the Sangha. In fact, the jewel of Sangha, where there are many great masters, they can nurture the seed of merit for all sentient beings, because they can use methods such as education, such as turning the wheel of the Dharma, which could then nurture the seed of liberation for all sentient beings. What could he bestow? They could, in fact, bestow the supreme fruition to the human beings as well as the celestial beings. And that is why in our world there's really nothing more supreme than the jewel of the Sangha. As I said previously, there's in fact no human beings that can compare to the Sanghas. Why is that? Because people nowadays, in fact, they strive for their own benefits or for the benefits of their family. Other than that, in fact, they don't really strive for the benefit of sentient beings, don't even mentioning about for the celestial beings. There's no one have such intention. But for the monastic Sangha, their sole purpose is to benefit sentient beings and to propagate the genuine Dharma. If the Dharma were to be propagated in this world, in fact, the sentient beings will benefit from it greatly. According to the jewel forest of the Dharma garden, it says that on the superficial understanding, people would see the jewel of the Buddha as painted depictions or sculptures, and they would perceive the jewel of the Dharma just as words and scriptures. The jewel of the Sangha seems to be the group of monastics shaved off their head, their hair. But this is just really a very superficial way of understanding it. But what's the truth then? If we were to revere and prostrate to the three jewels, in fact, could bring us a benefit, and that transcends all the superficial appearances. On the other hand, if we were to slander or humiliate the three jewels, we will have to suffer in this lifetime or the next. So I think you can probably feel that yourself. If the three jewels were just something that is very superficial without any intrinsic benefit, then I think thousands and even millions of people won't be so faithful to the three jewels. However, throughout people's own practice and supplication and prostration, they indeed already gained the strength in terms of their spirituality as well as blessings personally. So there's definitely something very profound embedded in the three jewels. According to the Itivitakka Sutra, it says that the ones who make offering to the merit field of the three jewels can be called the most supreme donor, and they will eventually reside in great bliss and eventually attain nirvana. So if you have the ability, even if you don't have a great level of realization or practice, as long as you do not give up on the three jewels and at the same time try your best to serve, to offer, to revere the three jewels, I think in such a way your life would be very meaningful. People who are attending this class, I think many of you are here listening to this class because of the great power of wisdom and compassion, which then magnetized you to the Dharma. Without their great strength, and without their great strength, we probably would still dwelling in the ocean of suffering that is the samsara, will not be able to step onto the path of liberation. Now at least we found a direction, we're already on the path of liberation. So once we encounter the Sangha and the jewel of Dharma, it is in fact the most fortunate out of the unfortunate, that is the five degenerated, that is born in this degenerated age. However, in this degenerated age, at least we still have the Dharma. We can still see there are people there are the Sangha members who are wearing the red robes, and we even make aspiration together with the Sangha, and we even contemplate and practice with them. So this is really quite meaningful. This is really one of our most successful birth in this samsara. If you were to have clairvoyance or see all your previous lives, you would be able to know you've been to the hungry ghost realm, and you've been a yak before or a rakshas before, but now we encountered the Dharma and the Sangha. This is really quite meaningful. And then it says that to offer even a handful of pure water with great kindness, the merit is more than the measurement of the ocean. Atoms can be numbered compared to the merit of making offering to the Sangha. So over here it says that as long as we make offering to the Sangha with great kindness, the pure water, then that merit can surpass the measurement of a great ocean. And the Buddha said, even if the 3,000 worlds transformed into atoms, and then the numbers of atoms can be counted, but the merit of making such offering cannot be counted. Of course, nowadays we call wish-fulfilling jewels money. We think of the most precious thing in this world as money. Well, the wish-fulfilling jewel, that is the money, cannot bestow you anything. It could bestow you food and drink, but cannot bestow you liberation. But other than that, it could bestow you pretty much everything. And then it says that let it be jewels or wealth or just some pure water. If you were to offer that to the Sangha, then such merit is immeasurable. We often say that it is best to make offering of food to the Sangha. It doesn't even have to be that much. As long as you don't have that grasping mind, if you were to just offer a dime, 10 cents, and that kind of merit and fruition is inconceivable, because the Sangha, in fact, they are the pure merit-filled. If one seeks to transcend samsara and the river of poverty, one should immediately arouse faith to the Sangha. If one wants to surpass the samsara and surpass poverty in a short period of time, if you were to generate great confidence and faith, and then make offering and practice meritorious things to the Sangha, in fact, you will gain great benefit. In the Mahaprajna Paramita Shastra, it told a story. There is a story that an artist who went out to different places to work for 12 years, and after 12 years he received the payment that is his salary for that is 30 ounces of gold. He was very happy, and on his way returning home, he met this group of a really magnificent Sangha, and then he generated great faith, and he asked how much it would cost to offer them, to offer this group of Sangha a meal. And then there are people said that that cost about 30 ounces of gold. Maybe those people know that he only had 30, so he offered all 30 ounces of gold to the Sangha and made a pure aspiration. And then went back home. After he returned home, his wife was really upset, saying that after spending 12 years outside and we've been waiting for you, you only you made all of your earnings to offer to the Sangha. And this is, in fact, quite unreasonable, and you're not being responsible to the family. So the wife then went to the local authority to complain that her husband was not being responsible. And the local officer was in fact a lay practitioner, and that local officer, after knowing the story behind, then he felt that this is of great faith. So instead of punishing that artist, he gifted him even more wealth. I think this is a way of quick fruition after making offering to the Sangha. Therefore, let it be surpassing poverty or surpassing samsara. In fact, if you were to practice meritorious deeds to the Sangha, that kind of merit could be really grand. This is quite important. According to the Agama Sutra, it says that if you were to make offering to the Sangha, it could help you to to eliminate the 5 afflictions, and such kind of offering is pure and should be appraised. Even if you were to offer very little bit, you will be able to gain of great merit. Because the merit field is really pure, even if we were to make offering for very little, we will be able to receive great benefit from it. Some sutra says that the merit of making offering to the Sangha is so great because in terms of the conduct, they are all very majestic and dignified. In terms of the dressing, they are devoid of all the worldly dharma. Their mind is content and devoid of desire. And on top of that, they've already renounced all the worldly family members and so on. That is very difficult to renounce for the mundane beings. And for this kind of wisdom and pursuit, that is why the Sangha, in fact, has great merit. Therefore, over here it says that if you want to transcend the samsara, you should practice meritorious actions and sow virtuous seeds in the field of merit, that is the Sangha. And then it says that in such wondrous field of merit, if one were to plant the seed of merit, then eventually you will receive the immeasurable fruition, just like how the clouds has great rain within. Just like how in dark clouds it has the ring within, but we cannot see how big of a ring it has inside. By simply looking at the Sangha, you will not be able to see how much merit is contained within. In a sutra, it says that there was once a bhikshu who made offering to the Sangha, who made the offering of medicine, and in the following 91 kalpas after, he did not born as a poor person, and he was born with perfect health. And those are the reasons why, and that is the reason of making offering to the Sangha, making the offering medicine to the Sangha. Because the fruition of making such offering is perfect health in lifetimes. And there's another person who was born with a beautiful jewel on his ear. The reason is that he made offering of a small hut to the Sangha, and because of such meritorious act, he was able to be reborn with lots of wealth in his lifetimes. That is great merit, very special merit. So from this aspect, of course, if you don't believe, in afterlife or past and future lives, I think it doesn't really make much difference. But if you do, then you would understand not only you should avoid slandering the Sangha, you should try to accumulate merit within the Sangha. And then next one, it says that the benefactor or the donor, without making comparisons, rather making offering with equanimity and with a non-dual mind, such kind of person would be able to hold the fruition that is the most supreme in man and the celestial, in man and heaven. So the benefactor, it is as a benefactor, or if you were to make donation and offering, it is best not to make comparison, do not make measurements of who is worthy to receive my donation and who is not. You should rather make offering with a sense of equanimity, because they are all the children of Shakyamuni Buddha. They're the pure Sangha. Therefore, it is best to offer with equanimity and non-duality. According to the ornament of Mahayana Sutra Shastra, it says that there was once a benefactor who only likes to make offering to the old bhikshus. He doesn't like to offer the young novice. And that is why usually the young novice couldn't get enough meal. But within that group, lots of young novices were already arhats. They already attained such fruition. One arhat, young novice, was really naughty, and he purposely manifested himself into an old bhikshu. And the donor was very happy to see an old bhikshu standing in front of him, and while at the time he was just about to make offering to that old bhikshu, then that bhikshu transformed back into the young novice again. The donor said that, "Why do you do that? Are you a Raksha? Are you non-human?" And then the novice replied saying, "I'm neither Yaksha nor Raksha. In fact, I am a novice. I am a monk." And then he taught the donor a few stanzas saying that just like the mouth of the straw of a mosquito trying to cover up the entire bottom of the ocean is impossible, it is the same. That is why the mundane beings cannot understand the merit of the Sangha. And then he said he also gave a few teachings about the things that one should not despise. First one is one should not despise prince, because prince will eventually become a king. Second one, do not despise a snake, because they will become a dragon. The fire cannot be despised, because if you're not able to contain it, it will create a great disaster. And young novice should not be despised, because even though they look quite naughty, they might become a great master later. Back in 1987, I was living in this straw-made hut, and at the time, I had to buy some cow dung for burning. Sometimes I couldn't get it at all, but there was this one person who would sell the cow dungs around the area, and we had pretty good relationship at that time. And then he would then take some of those cow dungs to me, and sometimes I would ask him to stay for lunch or so on. Once he told me that he used to be very close to Pongso Rinpoche, so I asked him how, and he said that before Pongso Rinpoche went to Sersho to study, Pongso Rinpoche was also very young. He was a kid, and when they were both young, they used to herd the yaks together. And at the time, Pongso Rinpoche, when he was young, he was really naughty, and there were other people who herd the yaks who would use cow dungs to hit them. And they would even set up thorny traps for them as well. So lots of those stories I heard from that old man. And ever since I heard that story, I would look at the young novice who are really annoying and very naughty. I would think to myself, maybe he would become a great master, and then I would try my best to have a pure view, have a sacred outlook. So, it's very difficult to say, because there are great masters in the history when they were young, when the seed was still not sprouted, have not flourished. They appear to be the same way as the mundane beings, maybe even more naughty, even more stubborn, but maybe later on they will become extraordinary. So there are people, while making offering to the Sangha, it is the best to let go of your bias. That is probably the best. Adorned with immeasurable merit, the disciples of the great compassionate Buddha, the mundane beings' perception can hardly differentiate the merit, just like how there are dusts covered on top of fire. In fact, the monastics have great immeasurable merit and are really dignified. There are people, on one hand, it is the inner ornament, and that is the precept and samadhi as well as wisdom, and the other one is the external, including what he wears and his conduct. However, nowadays people only look at the exterior, and I think also because people don't have the ability to differentiate or to observe the interior ornament or magnificence. Just like how soot and dust would cover on top of fire, and then in such a way you won't be able to see if there's a fire underneath. But once you sit down, if you were to sit on it, then the fire could burn your body. That is quite horrifying. Similarly, humans' eyes cannot observe how great the inner realizations of the Sangha, such as a bodhisattva or great masters or great realized ones. Therefore, we should not try to make such presumptions that this person is bad and that person is inferior. Well, in fact, nowadays I notice how Tibetan people tend to slander someone on at the first moment, and then second moment they would confess by chanting Om Banzar Sado Hong. I noticed that the Chinese practitioners also learned that. On one hand, they would chant the mantra, on the other hand, or right after, they would restart on slandering others again. This is in fact not good at all. It is the best not to slander or talk about other people's shortcomings to start with, because it is hard to say if other people. It is hard to say how you can control your own mind. It is just like if you were to beat up someone and then you say I'm sorry, and then you start beating him up again, then what's the point of it? Sanghas are like that too. There are people who would say this monastery is not good, the other monastery is not good. I think in terms of this, the Chinese are probably better than the Tibetans, because the Tibetan young ones, especially, there are some who really resent the Sangha, especially the monastic Sangha. If they were to see even a little bit of faults in the monastic Sangha, they would right away start to use all kinds of language to slander them, even create such kind of slandering online. Previously, the Tibetan people and Tibetan ethnics, in fact, they are very pure. And nowadays, I think maybe because of the Western culture and lots of the modern culture's contamination, the young people nowadays, through internet and through words, they would use various ways to attack the monastics. to attack the monastics, I think it's not necessarily creating any kind of harm to the monastics, but it is definitely very harmful to the person who's making such slandering. In Larongar, every year we do have different criteria every year for the ones who do not observe perfect precepts. They cannot stay with the Sangha anymore. If they were to break their vows, they cannot stay with the Sangha. If they don't have the right view, they cannot stay with the Sangha anymore. So to slander the Dharma, to slander the Sangha, to slander the Buddha, in fact, if you are a mundane being who lives outside of a Sangha, it's up to you if you have faith or not. But within the Sangha, within any Buddhist group, it is best to not get any close with these kind of people. You should not stay with this kind of people. On top of that, nowadays, I think another situation that I don't really like to see is that there are people who live off the Dharma, and there are people who live off slandering Dharma as well. What does it mean by live off the Dharma? For example, they would say, oh, this product has great blessings, or to say that this has been blessed by Pontsokro Rinpoche, this so-and-so, the Vajranath, the Vajra, whatever has been blessed. If it is truly blessed by a great master, then we shouldn't sell it for a high price, because it should be made available to as many beings as possible, and you should not then put a monetary value onto it. Therefore, when people say that this is full of blessings, I would have a lot of second thought to it, or even hesitate to hearing such kind of language, because I'm afraid if they would make the price higher. How can you measure blessings with money in this commercialized age? In this age of commercialization, how much does it take to make a statue of a bodhisattva? What's it made of, and how much does the mold cost, and so on? How much does it cost to put the treasures or the blessed object in there? I think everybody really knows. I really think that in this age, it is best not to use the blessed object as a way to generate wealth. This is really not appropriate. Then there are Sangha members who may appear to be the ones who had already break their precepts. However, secretly they inherit the immeasurable merits. Therefore, you should see the Sangha with great faith and reverence, because their inner realization cannot be measured by the mundane beings and the foolish ones. There are monastics who may violate the rude precepts, but maybe there's a secret meaning behind such conduct, and that secret meaning or that conduct could be of great merit. Therefore, you should see the monastics' conduct with faith. Just as the story of Mitripa, who drinks and who break vows and so on, and Venerable Atisha then expelled him from the Sangha. After that, Mitripa then went through the wall right away and walks on the river. After seeing that, Atisha was regretting a lot, and then makes a little tsatsa to confess, because at the time the supervisor of the Sangha was Atisha. So of course, that's great accomplished ones. But for the mundane ones who were not really accomplished, other than the supervisors who should really do something about their conduct, I think for other people, it is the best not to make any judgment based on dualistic thoughts. There are the Sangha members who probably would appear with majestic appearance, but maybe because they have not given up the 3 poisons, but there are the monastics who look very mundane, but maybe they have a great inner realization. It's very difficult to say what kind of inner realizations they have. According to a story of Ashoka, he used to make offering to 1,000 arhats every day. And one day he saw a young novice who kept on staring at his concubine. And then Ashoka was not happy at all. And then after making offering, he asked 3 grand masters to stay and inquired them about the young novice. And one of the arhats said that that young novice already attained arhat fruition and he has clairvoyance. And through his clairvoyance, he saw that your concubine only has 7 days of life. Maybe he has some ways to reverse it based on certain conditions. And then Ashoka right away asked or requested the young novice to come over and then bowed to him with his concubine. The young arhat give teachings to both the concubine as well as Ashoka. Then the concubine right away received the fruition of Sharupata, which then helped her to overcome her obstacles of longevity. So by staring at her was really there was some secret meaning behind his conduct. After I posted this sutra on my social media, lots of lay practitioners left a message saying that I wish I could have read it earlier because I would have avoided making lots of negative karmas because of my previous wrong view to the Sangha. Just as the Amrapali fruit, that is the manga fruit, has the 4 different stages of has the 4 different types of maturation. There are the ones that is ripened on the outside but not in the inside. There are the ones that's unripened on the outside but ripened on the inside. There are the ones already fully ripened and the ones fully unripened. Just like that, there are the monastics who attained complete realization. You can see that on the outside and inside, and the ones who has not attained realization at all, both on the outside and the inside, and the ones who are rather mixed. But those 4 types are in fact quite difficult to see by the mundane beings. Similarly, whether a monastic could observe his precept cannot be seen from the outer conduct or outer appearance either, just like Master Jigong as well as Kumara Jiva. So one should always use the pure precept. And then last one, it says that we should therefore with great Therefore, it is quite important not to slander nor create obstacles to the Sangha. Otherwise, one would dwell in this ocean of suffering, that is samsara. But one should constantly revere and cultivate the field of merit. So one should revere, make offering, not to have a wrong view towards the Sangha. Later we'll talk more into it. Today we should stop here.